This is a review for Orville, Episode 8, Into the Fold. Overall, this was a good episode. I had one big issue with it, but I'm going to do my positive part of the review first, and then I'll get into my little issue with it at the end, so anybody who doesn't want to hear that part can simply listen to the beginning and then turn it off. I don't expect my opinion to be very popular, so that's just my little warning ahead of time. The first thing I thought about when I listened to the title of this, there's a literal meaning because they go into a fold of space, but it made me think of Into the Woods, especially since it's a story about lost children in a wilderness filled with monsters. The monsters are people who have been transformed by a disease that was caused by a war, a biological weapon. And a family crash lands on this planet, and they are forced to deal with that and trying to get back to their ship, which, because they've gone through a fold in the space-time continuum, is much, much farther away than it would have been from usual shuttle distance travel. The other cool thing about this episode is that the family is the doctor and her two children, and for some reason the robot is their pilot. So it's these disparate characters thrown together. The robot is there because he wants to study human beings, and she wanted someone to kind of help her child wrangle because she wants to take the children to a play planet, and she didn't want a robot who has no concept whatsoever of human nature to be there using her children as his guinea pig. So the entire setup is really funny, and there's just some hilarious jokes about the kids at the beginning. I was really just laughing my head off at a lot of those jokes because if you have kids, or if you even know any kids, they were very funny jokes. On the planet, the doctor and her children are separated. So the children are with the robot, and she is captured by an ambiguous character who's kind of like a prepper, but he's alone, and there's this kind of creepy, like, you're gonna be my mate kind of implication. It's never explicit. He says he's rescued her, but he's also kind of imprisoned her. And when she tells him that she has to go find her children, she has to meet up with her children, he's basically, yeah, they're already dead. All the water on this planet or this moon has been contaminated. They're gonna get the disease. They're gonna become insane zombie-like monsters just like all the rest. Forget about them. And of course, she's a mom, so she's like, hell no, dude. Meanwhile, the robot is with the children, and he doesn't really know how to comfort them. The mere act of holding a hand for comfort for the small child is something that's completely mysterious to him, so he doesn't even understand why the child wants to hold his hand. At night, the children ask for a story. He doesn't even understand why they want a story. Every writer should see the story scene because it's so funny, because they ask for a story and he basically just tells them exactly what has happened. A robot and some children landed on a planet. They didn't know what would happen at the end, or something like that. It was much funnier. I'm sorry. I shouldn't even have spoiled that. Spoiler alert. Go see that scene. It's very funny. It's worth it just for that. Meanwhile, we also intercut between her trying to escape and the children trying to survive, and the more we learn about the dangers on this planet, the more we become aware how endangered the children are. Okay, so spoiler alert, one of the boys actually gets infected with the disease. So now we have the timeline, because there's a time limit before he will basically not be able to recover. So in terms of making this like a really tightly written and a very exciting story, very well written story, the episode had all of that. Based on that, if you like Orville so far, you'll probably also like this episode. If you want to know my little personal issue with it, my little personal rant, you can keep listening. You probably won't agree. That's fine. Early on in the episode there was one little bit just couldn't let go. Like the Lone Ranger's horse. Like a gun with no safety, like a Yale student at Halloween, I was effing triggered. A little background, Orville already had an episode where there were some parents who had a very difficult decision to make about a child. That was the decision that the Mokluks? Oh God, I'm sorry. I'm still not quite sure about the alien name. They had a perfectly healthy baby girl hatch from her egg, but because they're an all-male species, they decided to have a sex change to make her a male. In the episode, this conundrum was handled very well. It was handled as a huge decision. It was handled as something that was controversial. It was handled as something that should be controversial. But in this episode, there was something that to me was just as significant that was just dismissed. There was a character who was human, not an alien, so this was supposed to be just like a normal, sympathetic human who had children who, for whatever weird reason that was never really explained, in fact, it was specifically not explained, as if it didn't need an explanation and you were even insulting somehow to ask for an explanation. This parent decided to have one kidney removed from each of her children at birth. Now, it happens that you can live without two kidneys, you can survive. And there's certainly nothing morally inferior about a person who has one kidney as opposed to two kidneys. So this isn't me complaining about, oh, these people are not as good people because they only have one they only grew up with one kidney. And there could even be lots of reasons that somebody would have to have a kidney removed from their child if one of the kidneys was diseased or had some problem with it, or it was endangering the child. Sure, you have to remove the kidney and then the child will grow up with one kidney. That's understandable. Or if you had to give the kidney to somebody else, there was some other person who would have died if they didn't for some reason have, this child was the only donor, then you could understand, all right, that's another situation. So it's not the situation of having a kidney or even a parent making a decision to have a child's kidney removed for some greater good. That I can understand. What I can't understand is why you would remove a child's kidney and have them grow up with one kidney for no reason at all. That makes the child more vulnerable, because you are more vulnerable to some kind of damage to your single kidney if you do have one kidney for no good reason. That's what I just couldn't get over. And so a parent who would deliberately do that to their child and deliberately set them up without cause, without reason, simply for either ideology or whim, that was not made clear, that I couldn't get over it. That made me dislike her more, and this is what the doctor did. Those of you who have seen Orville may be wondering right now, what the hell are you talking about? And those of you who haven't seen it yet and are going to continue listening may suddenly ask yourself, what the hell is her problem? Fine. Like I said, this is controversial. Not everybody is going to agree with me, but I felt very strongly about it and I decided I'm going to share it because it really did affect how I felt about that character. Here's the thing. It wasn't a kidney. She didn't have a kidney removed from each of her children. What she did choose to do was have a parent removed from their lives by deliberately having no father in their life. She says she chose to be a single mother. It's not that she tried to make it work with the dad and it didn't work. It's not that he died. It's not like in the story that they tell within this episode about the rabbits where their dad was captured by Mr. McGregor and baked into a pie. I could have been very sympathetic for any of those reasons. But no, she chose to, and the implication, it was just her ideology or her whim. And shut up if you don't like that, if you think that's wrong. You're the bigot for thinking that her choosing to be a single mother is anything to get upset about. But I got upset about it because you deliberately deprived your children of one parent in their life. And we even see in this very episode why that might be a problem. Because if she had died in that crash, they would have been orphans. If they had a dad, they wouldn't be orphans when your mother dies. You would still have one parent left. But no, you chose to deprive your children of that. And if you think my kidney analogy is stupid, just ask yourself this. Would you give up a kidney to save your father's life? Or your mother's life? If you would give up a kidney to save the life of your parent, then clearly a parent is more important to you than a kidney. So my analogy doesn't even go far enough in showing what this mother has deliberately and for no reason whatsoever deprived her children of. A second parent in their life. And the other thing that was ironic about this is that the entire episode actually shows why you need two parents, because the robot basically fills in for the dad. So I guess the moral of the story is if you don't have a dad, you need to get a robot. Well, I had to get that off my chest, but as Mrs. Lincoln said, other than that, the play was great. Y'all can hate on me in the comments if you want, but I grew up the child of divorced parents, and it's... what can I say? It bothers me a lot that this is considered acceptable and considered just fine in Hollywood all the time. That people get divorced on a whim, that they would even just raise their child without another parent on a whim. It bothers me. I don't like it. I think that hurts the children, and so I do judge a character who does that deliberately to their children. It made me like this doctor a lot less in an episode in which I actually sympathized with her so much because she's a mom and I'm a mom. She's protecting her children. I can very much relate to that. I like everything else about her character, but I don't forgive that because that just... it makes me upset. Now, it doesn't make this a deal killer for me for the series or even for her character because let's face it, people have different values. If she were my friend, I wouldn't defriend her. I wouldn't shun her because of this, and I would probably not even share this to her face because I would realize that it would be extremely hurtful, that there wouldn't be any way for me to talk about it to her. But that's why I'm going to talk about it, about a character, because it's not a person. So if you're in this situation and you feel like I'm talking to you personally and I'm triggering you, I apologize. I'm using the fiction to discuss this emotional issue for me so that I don't have to talk about it to any person I know in real life. And actually, I do know people in real life who have made similar decisions or divorced for reasons that I thought weren't justified, but it's not my business, right? So I don't get into their business, and it doesn't break up a friendship for me. It's not something I would bring to a real person or try to get in their business about it. But I do feel that we should discuss it when we're talking about fiction, because as I said, I think this is one of the things that fiction can do for us. It gives us a way to bring these emotions emotions to the front. I was actually super shocked at my reaction. I almost didn't even want to review this show because of it, because I thought it would be dishonest of me to discuss this show without talking about this stupid thing that got me so stupidly triggered like a little snowflake. But that's why I watch fiction, is to feel emotions and then think about those emotions and think, why did I react so strongly to that? And was I supposed to? Is that something they expected me to react strongly to and they wanted me to feel a different way about it? Or is it something they expected me to just kind of accept? Honestly, I haven't seen anybody else mention this in other reviews, although I haven't been watching as many reviews of it because I wanted to come to it a little more, without other people's ideas in my head and give you my personal opinion before I had other people's ideas all in my head. Now, I will go and watch other people's reviews. If you've done a review of it, you could just, I don't know if you can put a link without YouTube kind of punishing you for putting a link in there, but if you want to just mention that you've done a review of it and say what you think, and you might have a completely different take on this story, on this character. Again, that's fine with me. I'm okay with that. But I had such an emotional reaction, I felt that it would be dishonest not to share it. It comes out of my personal experience, and that impacts how I react to the story. Tara out.